Hello, and welcome to the Divine Feminine Leaders podcast. My name is Celeste Hartwell, and I am so excited to have you with us today. The Divine Feminine Leaders podcast is a feminine view of entrepreneurship for women, by women. And I want to let you know that if you're attracted to this work, it's because you are here to do really amazing things in the world. And likely you've already done really amazing things in the world, but you may not be giving yourself credit. And so we're here to inspire you to know that every piece of your journey has been for your betterment, for the betterment of humanity, of consciousness. And today I am so honored and so grateful to have with me Ina Lukas. And Ina helps people break through their biggest relationship, health, and money issues quickly and easily with divine guidance. She channels a collective of non-physical teachers called the Alchemists. And together with the Alchemists, Ina has helped people around the world free themselves from weight issues, phobias, anxiety, parenting problems, financial fears, business blocks, health issues, and more. Ina's unique approach combines playfulness and levity with laser-focused intuitive skills, shamanic healing, and interdimensional soul work that allows people who are ready to create a shift in their life have fast, fun, life-changing results. She lives and plays in her magic tree house in Encinitas. I'm going to say it incorrectly.
Yeah, Encinitas.
Okay, California. So thank you so much, Ina, for joining us today. Welcome.
Oh, thank you, honey. It's such an honor to be here. Thank you.
I love Ina and her work, and this was, I really tune into who shows up for this podcast. And I met Ina many years ago in a business program that we were both a part of. And I've talked about on this podcast before, Abraham Hicks. I love people who channel, I guess, flamboyantly, I don't know what else words, but like publicly, and say like, this is who I am, this is what I do, because in ancestral, like in our lineage, there was so much stigma around that, and coming into this awareness that we have today, when we realize that we are all channels, but not everybody has come to that yet. And so I applaud you, I celebrate you for doing this work. And I love your work. I've worked with Ina multiple times. Her work is incredible. I cannot speak highly enough about it. So again, I just wanted to wax poetic a little bit about you. Like, I love you so much. And I really appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Thank you, honey. Yeah, and it's so, in the work that I do, and the alchemists who I channel, often talk about how we each have our unique skill set, like our own specific intuitive gifts and skills that are our own unique toolbox. And every one of us has our own unique toolbox that is necessary on the planet at this time. At this time of awakening, yes, we are all channels, and yes, we all bring through different elements that were based on the life, this series of life events that we've lived in this physical life, and then also our soul lineage. And, in this carnation, the gifts and skills, like that's a lot of the work that I do, is bringing through the intuitive gifts and skills of all the lifetimes of our soul lineage that we're bringing in. And like you said, because of that, it's scary. Yeah. Like for me, like I didn't want to be a channel. I was never like, oh, I'm gonna close my eyes and do weird things and talk in a different voice publicly in front of people. Like, no, I was like, I didn't sign up for that, but apparently I did, because the Alchemist just came to me, and my whole journey really has been pushing myself continually out of my comfort zone, like wanting to feel like I, at each stage of coming out of my spiritual closet, has really been that kind of, that, you know, are all on our own hero's journey where we're pushing ourselves out of our comfort zone. But when we line up with what it is that we came here to do, like when we really tap into our gifts and skills and bring them into the world, it's like stepping into your own skin. And I cannot imagine doing anything else than what I do at all. And then the universe wraps itself around you and supports you financially, physically, in bringing your work into the world. And the more we resist it, the more we resist who we are, that's where the physical symptoms show up. That's where the financial symptoms show up. That's where the relationship symptoms show up, is the more we push away from who we really are, the more out of whack we get.
I love that. Thank you so much for bringing that up, because it is really true. And I think we live in this culture that tells us, but you have to go to work for the money, and you have to, you know what I mean? Like there's all of this systemic beliefs that are telling us that to be spiritual is almost like a luxury, and to live in your divinity, to live in your knowing, to live in your truth, to live in bliss, to live because it is blissful, right? Like it's completely where you're at home, and it's really powerful.
Yeah, it's it's blissful, and it's dark and scary, and it's shadow work, and it's the roller coaster of going deep into those places where the fear is. It's the whole journey of living your spirituality. I mean, for me, it's like I walk and talk and live my spiritual journey daily. And my work is my life. And, you know, like where I live in my magic tree house, and everywhere there's altars throughout the house. Like my home is my sanctuary. And, and me bringing the work through that I bring through, I have to have daily ritual. I have to have daily ceremony. It's like living the modern day shamanic life. Like, what does that look like? It doesn't just look like something you post on Instagram. It's actually, it's like living in the container of ritual. And that's, I mean, like a lot of what your work is bringing the divine feminine and female entrepreneurs, right? And like, how do we run a business from a feminine model, from a spiritual model, not the kind of masculine business coaching model that so many of us were taught, and honoring that feminine way of operating from our own rhythm. Like I love Kate Northrup's book, Do Less. Have you read that book? She brings in the powerful concept of working within our own cycles. So while men cycle every 24 hours, women cycle every 28, 30 days with our moon cycle, right? And in that cycle of ovulation, and like when you're ovulating, that's when you're magnetic. That's when you want to be out there in the world on social media. When you're actually bleeding, when you're on your period, that's the fertile void. That's when we go inward and we have downtime. And so there's this whole 4 parts of our menstrual cycle that when you start tapping into, wait, we have a cycle that isn't just launch, push, go. It's not that masculine way of just being on overdrive all the time. It's like our body naturally goes through the cycles of the fertile void, and then coming and going inward, and then having the emergence where the ideas are born, and then it's brought into ovulation and our magnetism, and then at the end of our cycle each month is that culmination energy where we get stuff done.
Oh, I love that. I've never heard of that.
Do less, Cape Northrop.
Oh my God, that, and it makes so much sense, and why we're just so vastly different, the men and the women. And I mean, I also often say too, like, there is this space for the divine masculine, right? Like the divine feminine is the intuition that's just been kind of hammered out and buried in our culture. And it's just inviting her back in. It's the intuition, it's the ease, it's the flow of life, and then inviting in the divine masculine to take the action on the creative ideas and the nuggets that come up. So I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And I mean, I think that brings up a really great point too, because you are a mom, like, you have children, you're leading retreats and traveling around the world and all of that. So talk to us a little bit about how you balance that, and how can you have it all, Ina? I wanna like hear, like, because I feel like you do. Like, I feel like you live an abundant lifestyle, in love and in seeing the wounds and doing the inner healing work all the time, but also managing your business and managing your family and all of that.
Yeah, I would say I absolutely love my life. Like, I am at a point where, like, all the areas of my life are really in a humming and singing place. But when I say that, I don't mean it in a, like, because there's nobody out there that has some perfect life. And that kind of, like, just the whole social media world that makes everybody look so sparkly, to me, that's like the deeper we go into our shadows and our darkness, and the more we do that deeper excavation work, the higher we can go. And so, like, for me, what my life looks like right now is, yes, like, I live in Encinitas, California. I can walk to the beach. I live in my magic tree house. I have amazing kids. I have created my life doing what I love to do, and really making it work in an amazing way. But as I say that, like, it has been a deep journey of doing inner work, and it's still a journey, and there are still areas that I am definitely working on. But the process of it has, like, I've gotten more refined in how I create my days and my boundaries, and lots of white space and lots of okay, so just to bring in ritual
Yeah.
and ceremony as a container. So just like talking about how I've kind of created my life and what I've learned through kind of refining how I do what I do is, first of all, like, there's rhythm and ritual in my day every day, like, I have my morning routine. I have my my breath work that I do, like my physical work that I do, and then my altar work that I do, and like the calling in of the directions, the intention that happens, and those bringing in, like, whatever your version of container or ritual is, that kind of set point creates the container. One of my favorite alchemist quotes is, ritual is the container through which the sacred flows. Ritual is the container through which the sacred flows. So when you have whatever that ritual looks like for you, whether it's journaling, morning exercises, morning cacao, your tea, whatever, however you set it up, when you have some form of ritual in your day, in your weeks, in your months, that creates the container that allows the sacred to come through, the divinity to come through. And so that's how I really have learned to develop my life. And I'm still in process with this, like, this running a business from our feminine operating system is such a a work in progress because we're literally creating it. Like it hasn't been created before. We're just at this point in time where, you know, we went through the whole like women in the work world and, you know, like pushing that way. And we had to go into the masculine, and we're literally creating something that hasn't been created before. So I'm in conversation a lot with all my female colleagues of like, how do we do this? What does this look like? So going back to the ritual piece and kind of the flow piece, you know, what I've learned is that my days when I'm channeling, like I have to set up my work week so that I only work with clients Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Like I had to get clearer and clearer of if I'm all over the place, if I'm channeling these days, like when I'm channeling, I'm in that theta state and it's wonderful and magical, but then I need to be able to have downtime. I need to be able to recharge to do my work. And I need days where I'm actually working on my business, and to work on my business after I've been channeling for people. Like it's just, it's a different, it can flow. But what I've realized is the tighter my container is, so I only have these set hours that I channel for people. And then, you know, my Mondays are my work on my business days kind of thing, you know. So I have, the more refined I've gotten my week, the more space, the more white space I've created for myself, the more downtime, the more sacred time I've created for myself, the more money I've made. Like it really is, the less I'm working now, the more, you know, six figures I am.
Yeah. I love
and it's necessary, because you saying to the universe, I'm not going to like keep grabbing and doing and trying to fill in, you know, my weekends and okay, I'll work this day, I'll work that day. Like that's just the energy of bringing more overwhelm and anxiety and chaos to you. But when you're saying, no, these are my boundaries. These are the days that I work. This is my downtime, you know, like I have to float. I have to do my sensory deprivation tanks, you know, like the self-care rituals, like walking on the beach, swimming in the ocean, going outside, grounding, like those kind of self-care things. They become more and more non-negotiable. That's the thing for me, is my non-negotiables have gotten higher and higher. My self-care, it's just like, this is now non-negotiable, you know, floating, breath work, you know, like now I know you do silent retreats. Like I did a 5-day silent retreat by myself, just totally my own silent retreat out on 600 acres with no human contact for 5 days a couple months ago. And I know you know that, because I know you do like month-long ones, right? And when you do that, like what I got was like, this is my new non-negotiable. Like I have to do this quarterly, at least quarterly, 5 days of silence with no other external stimulation on me. And so that's kind of been the building of my system, is more and more boundaries, more and more sacred space, more and more connection to self, that then has created all of this, you know, more freedom, more abundance, more connection, more love. I mean, it really is. It's like, it's saying yes to us, and it's saying yes to our gifts. And simultaneously, my skills just become more freaking badass all the time.
Right.
You know, like my abilities just keep coming in and getting bigger and bigger. And they wouldn't be if I was scattering myself all over the place.
And I love where I feel like this conversation is going, because this self-care component, in so much of our culture, we've been made to feel like it's selfish and you can't do that. And there's all this noise about it. And I've called bullshit before, and I still will call bullshit. Like, here's the thing that I've been learning from interviewing women. The self-care is actually the key to success. It is the non-negotiable. Like, I mean, I think I shared this with you a little bit before we recorded. Like last week, my body, and I posted this on Facebook, my body was asking, you know, for a hot tub or a hot bath or a float or another chiropractor visit. And I kept saying, no, 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 I'll do it on Saturday. I'll do it on Saturday. And then Friday night, my body said, you're done. I'm sorry. Like I've continually asked you. That intuition has continually been, the communication was there. And so I got sick, and that's why I'm a little bit hoarse now, even still. But and so I was like, oh, and then having some humor about it and going, oh, I thought I was so good at the self-care thing. And it's a practice. It's a practice. It's a practice.
It's totally a practice. And we are all just works in progress.
Right.
We are all just works in progress. Like, we are all just doing our best. And then we get, you know, these reminders. But I love that the more we take care of ourselves, the more non-negotiable it becomes, and the more balanced our lives become. And, you know, for me, another piece is just like, in creating all of that, it's like just letting go of drama in my life. You know, that's been a very conscious thing for me in this past year, is just releasing drama, like drama in my mind, drama in my head, just any forms of that kind of, you know, external desire, because we get it now. Like, it's like, and what's fascinating is you start to release drama, like, you know, just cutting any relationships that just aren't like balanced and mutually uplifting, mutually nourishing. You know, it's like just having that close inner circle of friends that I have that are all, you know, that loving, mutual, uplifting, all of that. So, but what's interesting is I really have been on a mission to release all the different levels of drama in my life, but then realizing, oh, once I started letting go of drama, I realized, like, we are really actually so addicted to it. You know, it's like binge watching TV. It's like we are binge watching it for drama. And when my life started becoming drama free, then I realized that I started like I had a friend that had a lot of drama in her life, and I'd be like calling her up and just sort of like eating popcorn, you know, like listening to all of her drama and going, oh my God, like, and then I just had to like let go of that, because it's like, wow, we are so overstimulated constantly that we're just used to this state of overstimulation and external stimulus that triggers that, you know, that endorphin kind of response that Facebook does to us, that Instagram does to us, that is designed to overstimulate our brains. But the freedom that happens,
Right.
the freedom that happens when we just drop into, you know, love and connection and being with what comes up,
Mm-hmm.
without it being dramatic, you know, just, I think that's such a powerful part of the place that I've come to, is that stuff still happens in my life, right? Like mold, you know, in my house, like my kid, you know, my son, like I'm down and coughing, like, you know, like there's still stuff, like the life things that happen that you have to deal with. But like really dropping in and releasing the emotional part of it, and releasing the emotional response of guilt and shame and mothering guilt. My God, like that's a big one that I've just been really releasing, of realizing, you know, something happens, and then as a parent, you have all this like guilt, and I didn't do enough, or I should have. And then once you start like actually letting go of parenting guilt, mothering guilt, that's like a whole other level of, like, that's a drama in and of itself.
It is.
us thinking that like our kids are victims somehow, because that's what you do. If you're looping in parenting guilt, you are somehow thinking that you're disempowering your kids, making them be victims of your parenting, which is so wrong. Like, it's so off. Our kids are fully empowered beings, and like, as conscious parents, if we're being conscious parents, we're living in an empowered relationship with our kids. And if we're having conversations, even in the moments we're like, ooh, that was like, I fucked up there, and then we have a conversation with them about it, like, there's just nothing like so that's been a huge aha lately, is like, wow, I actually don't have to carry that guilt anymore, and the freedom and liberation that comes with that.
Yeah. Well, and again, we have this culture that tells us that if we aren't feeling guilty or feeling bad in some way, then we don't care. And again, that's bullshit. And it's interesting. I'm personally not a biological mother, although I grew up caretaking all my siblings and have stepchildren. But I always, like, whenever I hear someone say that, it's not to be, uncaring towards their feelings. Your feelings are always valid, but there's this space where when you come into this conscious awareness that we're all souls on our own journey, and every child has chosen their parents for a specific reason, you can't fuck it up. There is no fucking it up. They chose you for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
They chose you because they wanted to learn the lessons that they're learning from you. Whether it's fun or it's not, they came here with that intention, whether they know it or not, whether they're conscious of it or not. And once we can like flip, I just felt really called, like somebody needed to hear that, right? Like, it's okay. You can't mess it up. Like, there is no messing it up. So thank you for speaking on that.
Well, and my kids are now 17 and 19, and I look at these, I love them so much. They're such amazing humans that I just love hanging out with, and I'm like seeing all the results of how I did parent them. And when they were little, like, I was running a business. I was a landscape designer. I had a retail nursery, wholesale nursery. Like, I had, all these employees, and I was a mom. Like, I homeschooled my kids for 14 years. So they were with me all the time. I didn't have childcare. I was an attachment parent. I was breastfeeding them. I had so much on my plate. And there were times where I would freak out, like, 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 where you just scream and you yell, and like afterwards you're like, oh my God, like, I can't believe I lost it on them. But the times that I did that, I would always, do whatever I needed to do to bring myself back in. But like, I would never let the day go by or even hours go by where I would come back to them and I would say, I am so sorry.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry that I freaked out on you. That was not your fault. It was not your fault. I was completely overwhelmed. I had this stuff going on, and I take full responsibility. I'm so sorry that I freaked out on you like that. And I always took ownership of the times that I was totally stressed. I was totally overwhelmed, and it really wasn't what they were doing. If I wasn't stressed and overwhelmed, I wouldn't be reacting to them just being kids, right? And so the beauty of that is that, like, now as teenagers, if they do something, like if they're like, like a teenage girl, like, they're emotional, right? And they're like that's what happens when you're a teenager, and then you like, and I watch them take accountability. Like, my daughter will be like, I'll be like, are you upset with me right now? Like I just want to know, like, are we clear? Because like, if her moods a teenage girl moody,
Yeah.
you know, and she'll just be like, you know, oh my God, Mama, I'm so sorry. No, like I'm not actually, I'm in my stuff right now, and I didn't realize that I was projecting that onto you, and I'm so sorry. Like full accountability, you know. And that's just it. Like we're all just walking each other home, even as parents with our kids. Like as parents, we're just evolving, and as long as we're vocalizing our self-development process, our kids are witnessing us being humans in process, because they're humans in process too. Nobody's perfect. But if they can witness you in your imperfection and you can be vocal about it, like I watch my kids in awe now of how they show up in the world. But it's because they're authentic, and they've witnessed me loving them like so crazy much while being human. Yeah. And taking accountability for it.
Yeah.
Because we can't, like, nobody's perfect. You know,
right.
there is no perfect. It's just all this like unfolding process of human awakening and evolution.
And I will say too, as someone who was raising my sisters in a lot of different ways, and then with stepchildren, I was not super conscious during that. But I did apologize when I felt that I needed to. And I apologized years later when I realized really how bad I had fucked up in some places, right? Like, so there's always room for forgiveness. There's always room if somebody feels like, oh, but I don't go to my kids like on the same day, or I've never said that to my kids. Like, it's okay. We can start wherever we are, right?
That's exactly it. I've been having so many ahas around this. So last year when my kids turned 16 and 18, I was like, okay, there's a surprise day, like leave this day open. And then I gave them like a little list, like you're going to need to bring a swimsuit and a flashlight and a journal. And I throw in some other things that they wouldn't really know. So just to kind of like, we're going on an adventure. You have no idea where you're going. And I took them up to Glen Ivy Hot Springs, which is this like luxury hot spring resort with like 17 pools of like mineral baths and clay baths and hot plunges and cold plunges and steam rooms. And it's just this like total luxury experience, but they had no idea where we were going. And so when we got there and pulled in the parking lot, I had little gift bags for each of them, and I had written out like on a scroll, I gave them like some crystals, and what I wrote to them was, when you guys were little, I had no idea what self-care was. And what you witnessed growing up was me and Papa working our butts off continually and never taking time for ourselves. And it took me decades to learn how to love myself and to learn how to give myself self-care. And so what I want for you at this time of initiation, of you, my daughter turning 16, my son coming into adulthood, is what I would love is for you to learn at this age the importance of self-care, because you had no models for it growing up in your younger years. They're seeing it now, right?
Yeah.
And it was such an extraordinary experience. Like, we spent the whole day there. It's like we came out as different people, like we went in and, like did Jedi warrior skills of plunging between the hot water and, and cold water plunges, like, just teaching them all of these techniques of dropping into your body. And on the way home, I was talking to them about, creating buckets, like financial buckets, like when you make money, that you put money into your future savings, that you put it into, first into your daily expenses, but that you always have a bucket for self-care.
Yeah.
And you start putting money away for self-care. So and self-care it doesn't mean luxury spas all the time, but yes, like some form of that kind of self-care every few months or whatever it means. But self-care daily, like going for walks, breath work, meditating, like your daily self-care, and then your bigger rituals of self-care. And immediately after that, like my son like set up all his bank accounts, and now he just deposits money, and like, at 18 started creating investment accounts and creating self-care accounts. And it's like they got it. So I'm just sharing that story because it really showed me that the mistakes that we, it's not, there's never mistakes, but like the things that I wasn't conscious of when they were little, that I feel guilty as a parent that I wasn't showing them the example of, you're not messing up. Like there's always a learning point, always a learning point.
I love that. And so what comes up for me is I want to talk a little bit about your journey into this line of work, into channeling, and how you came into it. Because I know I've heard your story and I know you personally, but I just feel really called. I think that was a great like segue into how did you become Ina Lukas, the channeler of the Alchemists?
Um, yeah, well, I worked in horticulture for 20 years. So I worked in the plant world, and I was a landscape designer, and I had a nursery. And through that process, I was very connected. I like when I would be gardening, when I would be outside and working with plants, like it really, like I would just start to receive downloads. I would start to receive information, and I had a garden school. Like I would teach classes, and I always brought like a spiritual element of, because there's so much symbolism in gardening that relates to life and spirituality. But then as a landscape designer, I when I would show up at a client's house, I always knew that I had my divine team and they had their divine team. And I knew that my human brain had the encyclopedic knowledge of all of the different plants and their energies and their harmonies and how they work together. But I knew that it wasn't about me putting my designs on my clients. It was about receiving and bringing through what it was that they wanted to create. So I would ask, like, what are the emotions that you want to feel in your yard, and how do you want to feel? And then I would go pick plants because we had our own nursery, and I would start to just, I would say at the time I was like getting in the zone, and I could feel like what plant to put where. Like my body would be guided as to what to put where. And really, looking back, realizing that was actually my early kind of channeling state, which anybody does. If you're an artist or a musician or a sports player, like you said, starting out, like we're all channels, and channeling is really about getting out of our own way. And so I had all that time of like getting out of my way, and my intention was always to be of greatest service to whoever my client was. That it's not the Ina show, that it's like, how can I be of greatest service to bring through, to be a clear conduit for the environment that wants to be created in their yard. And I would always come back, so I'd be guided, I'd lay things out, and then I'd come back like a couple weeks later and I'd be like, oh my God, like, do you see how like this rhythm is moving here, and it's lining up with like these colors on the house and these angles here that I wasn't conscious of when I was actually doing it. But like coming back, so I would always be like, I know, like I physically like this out, but I didn't do this.
Right.
Like it just came through. And so as I just saying that, really, like we all have our own, that process of us getting out of our own way and allowing spirit to move through us was what kind of started bringing through me being able to receive then blocks of thought. And so then my head would start turning. So the alchemist came to me, like I would just start hearing, I would have messages coming through me. And yeah, I mean, a whole process of they started coming through me, and really realizing that it was unstoppable. It was that kind of horses at the gate, and like I couldn't hold it back, and simultaneously it was scary as hell.
Yeah.
Like the first time I was my friend Daniel Scranton asked me to come on to his podcast and channel live for like an unknown audience, and my first reaction was, I would rather be dead. Like, shoot me now. Okay, yes. And it's been a constant process of wanting to throw up, like of like like channeling in front of people, channeling for strangers, and like, so that whole process was just continually pushing myself out of my comfort zone, but having such a strong knowing that this is what I'm here to do. And so now I've moved from just, so it used to be that I was just channeling the Alchemists, but then through that process, whole new levels of work have been coming through, because now it's much more, my work is far more shamanic, like really ultimately it's shamanic healing that's coming through. And so the channeling was the initial stages of it, but now it's like I have just this like ancient medicine woman, like light language coming through, and I do hands-on healing, and really my work has always been laser focused on getting to the root of what's going on. You know, people are talking up here, and I'm always focused on what's the deeper root of what's going on. So I always say that like I have one speed, and that's deep. I can't do anything but go deep. I can't exist in shallow. I can't small talk. It's like rather be dead than be caught in conversations up here, you know, like I have to go deep. So that so yeah, it's just been a continual process of evolution of accessing my shamanic soul lineage of I've just lived, and I've lived lifetime of being a shaman, a healer, like in all of these cultures, and these past life memories keep coming back to me, and I get activated by those gifts and skills. So now it's like I'm calling in my gifts and skills from all of those lifetimes that are coming into play. So my work is just so multidimensional now. It blows my mind. It just blows my mind. And that's the thing, the more we get out of our own way in our head, the more we get out of our own drama, the more we create more space in our lives, the more we connect into our cycles of, you know, downtime and you know, and visibility, like I was saying, you know, the menstrual cycles, and bringing ritual and container into that, into our daily lives, into our weekly life, you know, like all of that, the more alive we become. And so now it just feels like I've taken off a Scooby-Doo suit after Scooby-Doo suit after, you know, like all these layers of who I thought I was. And now it's just every day it's more and more of just that being a blended being of, you know, 5D-ness of just spirit and human form, allowing myself to be a channel in the biggest sense of just being in service, while
So,
having defined boundaries,
yeah,
and containers,
and
rituals.
boundaries even with spirit, right?
Oh yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I call that because I've had to have boundaries with spirit myself.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I am not that person's personal prophet unless they are a client or unless they are open to the information.
Mm-hmm.
It is not my job to babysit other people's growth. It's for them to decide. So I've definitely laid some pretty strict boundaries with spirit myself around some people. But what come up for me was when you mentioned 5D. Like, I'm fairly certain I know what 5D means, but just for anyone who is not aware of that particular terminology, because I feel like we're really on the spiritual end here, and I love it because I eat it up, and this is like my zone, but I also want to be very aware and kind to anyone who's not up here with us. So how would you define 5D?
Well, kind of in general terms, we're at a time of, and this is just coming from my own perspective, and many other, I mean, a lot of people are channeling on this now. There's a lot of teachers that talk about it and people, but that that we're at a time of planetary shift where we're shifting out of 3D into 5D. And the way that I would generally describe it is coming out of denser energy into a higher frequency state of being. And 3D is being caught up in that drama and being, it's like when we still have the blinders on and we're not fully aware of who we are. And as we're coming out of 3D, it's like we're starting to wake up, we're starting to wake up to the bigger, broader part of who we are. And in the waking up to the bigger, broader part of who we are, that drama and those human suits start to fall away. And so 5D is just, it's, and I mean, I'm using human words like higher frequency, but really it's, I don't even like to use higher or lower, but let's just say it's heightened state of ease. Like 5D is like synchronicity, you know, like
it's like you think of something and it happens.
It happens, yes. Manifestations, creations just happening quickly, easily, and you not getting caught up, you know, like understanding that whatever is happening around you is happening for you. And so you're just working in a state of like, not, oh my God, why did this happen to me? And oh, I can't believe, where instead it's just like, oh, okay, this situation popped up. Cool. Like, you know, it's a pop-up quiz from the universe. What's here for me? Right. Yeah, where it's like, oh, how am I reacting? Like, I love the example of we're actually moving on an upward spiral.
Right.
So as we're evolving, like we're spiraling upward. And so you may think, well, why is this situation happening to me again? But it's really like, it may seem like an old situation, but you've actually shifted and evolved. And so that situation's coming to you, giving you an opportunity to react to it in a different way than you have before. And there's still some like little remnants of clearing, like it's just the residual, you know, to me, it's like, it's the residual stuff of, oh, I still hold on to guilt there. I still hold on to indebtedness there. There must be something that wants to be cleared. And so it's just, it clears easier. The ahas are bigger. And I mean, it's a lot of being in the state of like, oh my God, can you believe this? This is like, what? Like, wow. And time falling away, like the Gregorian calendar, where it's just like, what deep, what's going on? Like, you know, where time just, you're falling out of time and you're really living in a state of flow, which is why I love, you know, ritual and ceremony being a part of like, that's more of how time is created for me now, is like connecting into the moon cycles, the celestial cycles, the equinoxes, the solstices, like the turning of the wheel of the year, and you know, moving into more points of synchronicity rather than you know, plotting, planning. And you still need, you know, like I need to plan my retreat to Peru is in March. My retreat to Egypt is in October. Like I have my 2020, I've had my 2020 wall calendar up, you know, for several months now, because I need to plan where I'm going so that there's spaciousness in, yes, I am going to like, my friend Janet, you know, Janet Raftis, beautiful, amazing master healer, Janet Raftis, and I are now creating sacred activation journeys where the two of us are taking people to sacred activation sites around the world. And we're summoning together tribes of people who are coming together to be activated and to activate in these sacred sites around the world. So we need we need geographical locations with a time space reality that are then the beacon point where we're calling people in. and to have some spaciousness around that so that there's time and flow for people to show up. And it can happen where retreats could be more spontaneous by all means, but there's like a calmness in that kind of base of the pyramid feeling of and I'm still speaking to 5D here, like the alchemists talk about, like, oftentimes we're an upside down pyramid where you're like in overwhelm and you're like, oh my God, life is like, oh, this is happening and that is happening. And I'm speaking from experience here. It's like, oh my God, like
it's wobbly.
It's wobbly and we're not rooted. And so much of the work that I do and that I work with clients is writing the pyramid so that we're a grounded, focused pyramid with all four corners in the ground, grounded into the earth, and that we're stable. Our base of the pyramid is stable. Our financial stability is stable. Our relationship, everything is stable. And then, so our human physical material world is stabilized. And then that point of the pyramid is where we connect into source. So we're grounded, we're stable, and we're connected to source. And so that, like, bringing in that pyramid energy, we can operate in the feminine operating system, being grounded and having spaciousness. So how do I, like, because you, as an entrepreneur, you have to have the containers of, this is the program that I'm going to create, and so that you have your baseline income coming in with flow in that.
And it's important to know the energetic container to be able to hold the space for your clients. And this just is coming up for me, but like, for anyone who is an entrepreneur who's listening to this, if you're wondering why you're halted at a certain point in your business, not getting more clients, not making more money, whatever, it's always because you need to grow that container. Always. Mm-hmm. And it's something that's not talked about in the traditional business world. Like, that's just not a space that talks about the importance of our energetic systems and how important it is to do that work. So thank you, because it's really important. It is important to be grounded. So many of us go out of our bodies. We're not, it's easier to not be in our body, to meditate out of our body. And I speak from experience here. I meditated out of my body for a long time because it was too painful to be in my body.
Well, I am glad that you brought that up, because that's been just a really big awareness for me in this past year or so of working with people. So in shamanic cultures around the world, in all cultures, like a base belief of shamanism is that when there is a disease in the body or some kind of thing going on, when shamans are going in to heal, the belief is that disease or that, the money stuff, whatever, the relationship stuff, came from some form of soul loss. So shamans do soul retrievals, right? So when you experience a trauma as a child, an emotional trauma, a physical abuse, sexual abuse, it can be extreme, or it can be falling off a bike, going into surgery, going under anesthesia. Just at my lounge the other day, I was saying this, and one realized, oh my God, she fell off her horse when she was little and was in a coma for 2 days. So those kind of things and it can be as simple as a teacher making a remark to you in class and you feeling that like that being shamed in front of a class, just whatever, if you're really sensitive, like it can be something that someone said that caused so much pain that part of you leaves. So part of you leaves, part of your soul actually checks out. And so that 3-year-old part of you is gone, that 5-year-old part of you is gone. And this is why people who have had trauma happen, like they can't remember a year of their life, or they can't remember high school, or they can't remember like some part. That memory's just gone because literally part of their soul left. So then we're walking around like Swiss cheese. And what happens, especially if you're empathic, is part of you's gone, part of yours gone, part of yours gone. And then you start taking in other people's energy. And then you start getting filled up with your mother and your father. And if you're in that empathic narcissist thing, then the narcissists come in and the empathic, and you're Swiss cheese and you're filled with everybody else's energy. And then you're an upside down pyramid and only 20% of you is here and the rest of your soul has like left from all these points of trauma. And so at a baseline, so much of the work that I do with people now is when they're fragmented is doing soul retrievals and going into the lost parts of them, bringing back their 3-year-old and doing the healing work on that part of them, and actually integrating and bringing in the soul fragments, the soul splinters, and clearing everybody else's energy out of your body, and then bringing all the parts of you home. And then when you're home, like, it's crazy. I watch people like, in 20 minutes or, like in one session or at the end of an hour where they're like, oh, I didn't realize I've not been in my body my whole life. They're like, oh my God, I can actually feel myself in my body. They look different. It's like a spiritual makeover of bringing their whole soul home. I mean, it blows my mind what happens when people come home because they don't realize that they haven't been here. But that feeling of like, I never quite feel like myself, or like, I'm just like, I never quite, there's just this confusion or this, like, what is my mission? All of those feelings of just not feeling quite there, are just, that's all soul from my perspective, and everyone has different perspectives, but in the work that I do, that's what creates PTSD. So if you're not all here, if your soul is not all in your body, and then a situation happens and you get triggered, the PTSD like keeps you, it's like, that's what I'm learning is that when all of you is home, when all of your soul is here, there is no PTSD because you're fully here, and there's not that reaction space that comes from not like, it makes me want to go like be with homeless vets, and start bringing their souls back.
Right. Well, that'd be amazing. That'd be amazing. It's just, when you were talking about that, I felt like I myself was getting an activation. Like, this is actually a lot of the work that I've done with myself, of like bringing back the pieces of my soul and bringing back and seeing those parts. And it's interesting because this is just a testament to the work that you're clearly doing with people, but like a testimony. But once you have all those pieces, like, I had a traumatic time in March where my partner got hit in the throat with a hockey stick because he was playing hockey. He ended up staying in the hospital for 2 nights. We were in Vegas. We were on vacation. And then literally as soon as he got discharged, I got called that a family member had a heart attack. And so I needed to go like back to Iowa instead of coming back home to Vermont on the way home. And I was so grounded. And I think actually it felt like my groundedness was actually triggering for certain people. But I just saw what was happening, and I was like, but nobody's dead. Everybody's okay. I mean, yeah, it kind of throws a wrench in my plans, but let's be honest, Spirit was telling me to go back home, and I hadn't made those reservations. So this was the way to like just get me to go home. So nothing bad happened. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't catastrophic. To me, I just found it more amusing. And that is the power of doing the soul retrieval work, like, and doing the inner healing work. And it is like, you just move through instead of, and I had friends go, oh, I'm so sorry all that happened to you. And I'm like, I'm not. It was funny. I mean, I thought it was hilarious. I didn't laugh in people's faces who just were in the hospital, but I kind of did with my beloved a little bit, because I was like, why do you think you created this? I'm like, I may not be the most, if you want somebody to be kind to you, I was compassionate, but I also wasn't holding space for the victim space, right? Like,
Yeah.
you're not a victim in this. We've all co-created these circumstances. So why did we do it?
Well, and I just want to speak to that piece of, so like your beloved just had that injury in his neck. So, I recently realized that, I was doing all this soul retrieval stuff for, people's younger lives. And I, like, one day I was kind of spacey, and then I realized, and I was getting having anxiety reactions to things. And then I realized, oh my God, I just had soul loss by a recent event, like where I had fraud and my bank accounts emptied out to zero, and I didn't realize that in that shock and trauma of everything getting zeroed out, that actually part of me checked out. And so I needed to do a soul retrieval on the part of me. So it can happen. It's
Anytime.
not just past, it's anytime part of us gets that, the jolt, the trauma, something that causes that kind of reaction, that we still have to bring ourselves. I mean, and that's part of my daily ritual, is just, at the end of every day, releasing everybody else's energy from my body and bringing any fragmented parts of me home.
Yes.
Just and on a daily, that's just spiritual hygiene. That's a non-negotiable spiritual hygiene of just daily, I release anybody else's energy from my field, and I call all parts of me back home.
I love that, because that is definitely something that I've been called to do on a very regular basis as well. And so I wanted to back up a little bit. I mean, and we're talking about ritual again. Whenever I talk about ritual and ceremony, the way I've explained it in workshops that I've taught is, when you have your nice, cozy little coffee in the morning, that's a ritual. It doesn't have to be this super witchy, cauldron stirring, thing. And so, and even weddings, those are rituals. That's ceremony. We have all of these things in our culture that are ritualistic and are ceremonial, and in a lot of spaces we've lost it. So I'm just a little curious about if you want to share with us a little bit about your daily, your weekly, your monthly, your annual rituals. I mean, clearly we've got a now 5 days silent quarterly retreat, which speaks to my heart clearly. I love silence and all of the goodness that comes with that. So yeah, explain a little bit more. What's in there for you?
Yeah. So on a daily basis, I I have altars that I work with, with I mean, for me, it's setting up crystal grids, it's lighting candles, it's calling in spirit, working with specific intentions, it may be one crystal grid that I'm working with multiple points of it over several months, of intention in bigger parts of my life. And I just got slightly distracted because I saw that my daughter texted. mom brain, just kidding.
Right.
So however you connect into spirit, we all have our own ways. So I have my own rituals, but there's power in lighting a candle. There's power because just with the intent, lighting a candle is a process. So each of these processes, it creates a consciousness, and so on a daily basis, I have my altar where I cut flowers from my yard and I connect into spirit by creating offerings, which was very much being in Bali had a huge impact on me in terms of witnessing daily ritual, daily ceremony, daily offerings, and daily connection to the divine. For me, that's my ritual, is the connection to the divine, bringing intention into the co-creation of how we work with spirit. So, you can have rituals. Your ritual can be, making your coffee, making your tea, making a warm beverage, and sitting down with your journal and lighting a candle and lighting some incense, like having a smell or putting your essential oils on, like things that cause you to connect in, whatever that looks like for you. It's simple things, but an olfactory response, can then, I mean, like years ago when my kids were little, I would, like the only time that I could work on my business was like at night after my kids went to bed, and then I'd go to Starbucks and I would drink like a green tea latte. And to this day, drinking a green tea latte puts me into like, I'm in work creative mode now. Like, so it just, like this is like modern day ritual, but it's something that evokes the feeling of a container that puts you in,
That
um,
space.
yeah, exactly. And so daily rituals like that. And then I'm very connected to, the moon rituals and, connecting into the cycles of the moon. And just recently, a powerful ritual for me has been on the new moon, just stating one intention. Like when you work with moon rituals, inward. It's inward work. Like people think, oh, full moon release, I want to release that, and I want to release that, I want to release that. And new moon intentions, like I need a new car and I needed it. And you start like making a list of all of these things. And so the work that I've been doing more so recently is when you release drama, it's like it's not all the stuff. One inward intention on the new moon is so powerful. Just one intention. So you're starting a lunation cycle. It's the beginning of, that next cycle, which connects us into our periods. It connects us into our female rhythm of those 30-day cycles. And so one inward intention, meaning like if you have relationship drama going on, your one inward intention may be, I am peaceful.
Mm.
Where you drop down into like looking at what's going on in your life and what is it that you're actually claiming underneath all, what is it that you actually want underneath all that. So you want to heal that relationship or whatever. Like what I really want in my life is I want peace, so it's just a simple, I am worthy, I am peaceful, I am valuable, I am safe. And it's one statement that you work with over the next couple weeks until the full moon. And then on the full moon, noticing what happens right before the full moon. That's one thing that you're releasing, and circumstances will start showing up for you that that give you the information of what you actually want to release. And it's one simple thing. I've always been into like the simplest processes, to me, are always the most powerful. And we just want to add all these things, but throw in the car and I want this and I want that. And instead it's like simplify, just start getting clear. And when you start working in that way of the one simple intention, the one simple release through the course of a 30-day cycle, magic happens. Like it's amazing what will show up for you in the triggers that it shows up to start clearing, and in the magic that shows up. Like that process has caused life to quantum leap for me. That simple. So I'm aware of our time here. We're
I
kind
love that. No,
of
I feel like that is the perfect space to like wrap up, because it's such a tangible tool that people can take back and really, yeah, quantum leap their life or just grow in a really beautiful way. So thank you for sharing that. And so I know that you had a free gift that you wanted to share with us. So I would love to hear about what that is.
um yeah. I have a program called Receive that is a series of 5 activations, or maybe it's 6 actually, channeled activations with the Alchemists that are all about opening your heart to receiving. Opening your heart to receiving your own medicine, to receiving prosperity, to receiving abundance, but just opening you up to receiving on all levels of your life. It's such a powerful series. So I do these channels. And as you know, I do for almost 10 years now. I've been doing channeled activations and DNA activations, and they're just super powerful. But that's the series that just dropped in for everyone that's listening in. If you would like that, we'll
I
put
love that. And so where can people find that?
I will give you a link to post.
Okay.
My website is inalukas.com, inalukas.com. And just on my website, if you sign up for my newsletter, there's a free prosperity activation download. But I'll give you a specific link so that people, because normally the Receive program is a paid one, but I'll give you a link so people can get it for free, so they can click on that. And just also on my website, there's a Soul Tea page, and that has tons of free Soul Tea episodes that I've done, channeled Q&As, channeled activations on money, love, relationships, and people can work. I work with people one-on-one over the phone anywhere in the world, and I do in-person workshops here in Encinitas and around the country, and then retreats. I have my retreat with Janet in Peru in March, so there's all kinds of ways that people can play with me.
I love that. And just a testimonial again for the Soul Tea. They're amazing. Like, it's like done every Saturday, and they're just short, 25, 30 minutes, maybe max. Again, like channeled messages from the Alchemists that are just loving and peaceful and supportive and nourishing. And they're just really beautiful. And I know that I've sent you messages before, like, I love these, thank you so much. Like, they're just really, really special. So there's so much that people can, you can, if you feel called to work with Ina, if you want to talk to her more, do the soul retrieval work, download the Receive activations. We'll have the links in the description for you. Ina Lukas, thank you so much for joining us today. I really,
thank you, honey.
really appreciate it so much. The work that you're doing in the world is really, really important. Helping people heal, helping people really step into their brilliance is what it feels like for me. And it's important work. So thank you.
Thank you. And likewise, thank you for bringing through this work in the divine feminine that you are. It's so necessary.
Thank you. Necessary. Yeah. So this has been the Divine Feminine Leaders podcast. We appreciate you so much for listening and watching. We are on YouTube if you're not listening to us there. We're also on iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify. And if you felt touched, moved, shifted in some way by this episode or any of the other ones, please share the love with anybody that you feel would really benefit from these podcasts, from this work. You can subscribe to get the latest goods. And I just want to let you know that we so appreciate all of you. We're all here in the greater collective consciousness doing really important work on this planet. And this is the Divine Feminine Leaders podcast. We are a feminine view of entrepreneurship for women, by women. And I am Celeste Hartwell. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Celeste.